The space station Hessen 7 hung like a silver ornament above the swirling clouds of the gas giant below, among its many curved hallways and busy markets. Starlight Street stood out as the main shopping area. Here, between glowing alien shops, selling strange goods, sat a simple bakery with a wooden sign that read Earth's Hearth. Ty wiped flour from his wrinkled hands and looked out the small window of his shop. At 73 years old, his hair had turned white and his back had begun to bend. But his eyes remained sharp and clear. The old human had seen much in his long life: war, peace, and everything between. Another day, he said to himself as he fired up the old stone oven that had traveled with him across 3 star systems. The heat filled the small shop, bringing with it the promise of fresh bread in a place where most food came from machines. The station's artificial morning light was just beginning to brighten when Ty mixed his first batch of dough. His movements were slow but sure, hands working from memory built over decades. The sourdough starter he used had been with him for 30 years, a living piece of Earth in this far corner of space. Outside, the station was buzzing with unusual activity. Word had spread quickly. The Dragon King's fleet had been spotted entering the system. The mighty Draconis, rulers of 7 star systems, had come to inspect their newest territory. Ty's neighbor, a blue-skinned merchant named Day, tapped on the bakery window. When Ty opened the door, the alien's worry was clear in the rapid blinking of his 4 eyes. "You should close today, friend Ty," Day said, his translator making his clicks and whistles into smooth words. "The Dragon King comes with his guards. They say he has little love for humans." Ty smiled and shook his head. "The oven is already hot, and the dough is rising. Besides, everyone needs to eat, even kings. Your kind's stubbornness will be the end of you," Day said, but there was fondness in his voice. "The Draconis remember the war with humans. They do not forgive easily." "Then perhaps they need a reminder of better things," Ty replied, returning to his work. As the station's day cycle reached its middle, the normal busy sounds of Starlight Street fell quiet. Shop owners stood nervously at their doors. Customers hurried to finish their business. The air felt heavy with waiting. Ty had just pulled a tray of golden rolls from the oven when he heard it. The heavy, measured steps of the royal guards. Their armor clicked against the station floor as they marched down Starlight Street, clearing a path for their king. Through his window, Ty caught his first glimpse of the Dragon King. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, the Draconis ruler moved with the grace of a predator. His scales shifted between deep red and black, catching the light like polished stone. On his head sat a crown of metal and lightened neural network that connected him to his vast empire. Ty expected the royal party to pass by his small shop. Why would the ruler of 7 systems care about a human bakery? But to his surprise, the procession slowed as it approached Earth's Hearth. The Dragon King's head turned, his vertical pupils narrowing as he seemed to catch the scent of fresh bread. The entire street held its breath as the mighty ruler changed direction and moved toward the bakery. Ty straightened his apron and took a deep breath. He had served all kinds in his time: refugees, soldiers, diplomats, and traders. From 100 worlds, a king was just another hungry visitor, he told himself, even as his old heart beat faster. The bakery door slid open with a soft chime. The Dragon King had to duck his massive head to enter, his guards squeezing in behind him with weapons ready. The small shop suddenly felt very crowded. "Welcome," Ty said simply, as he would to any customer. "What can I offer you today?" A shocked silence followed his words. The guards tensed, their scaled hands tightening on their weapons. A slender 6-armed alien stepped forward from behind the king, eyes shifting from blue to yellow in alarm. "You address His Majesty, King Hyan, ruler of the 7 Suns." Conqueror of the Dragon King raised one clawed hand, cutting off the nervous translator. His eyes, ancient and cold, studied Ty with open curiosity. "You are not afraid, human," the king said. His voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder. Ty met the ruler's gaze steadily. "I've lived too long to waste energy on fear. Your Majesty, would you like to try today's bread?" The sweet rolls just came out of the oven. Something flickered across the Dragon King's face: surprise, perhaps, or amusement. He gestured to his guards to lower their weapons. "Very well, Baker. Show me what your species considers worthy food." For the next 20 minutes, the most powerful being in this part of space stood in the small bakery, trying different breads and pastries. Tai explained each one as he would to any customer the ingredients, the history, the proper way to enjoy them. "This is sordo," he said, cutting a slice from a dark, round loaf. "The starter culture has been alive since before I left Earth. In a way, it's the oldest thing in this shop, older than me." The Dragon King took the offered slice, examining it before taking a bite. His expression remained unreadable, but he finished the entire piece. "And this?" he asked, pointing to a tray of twisted, golden pastries. "Honey twists," Tai explained. "The honey comes from the station's farm ring. The bees there are descendants of Earth bees, but they've adapted to space life, just like us humans." As the king sampled each item, the tension in the room slowly eased. The guards remained alert but no longer looked ready to fire at any moment. The translator, who had introduced himself as Jin, even accepted a small pastry when Tai offered it. When the Dragon King had finished his tasting, he placed several large coins of royal currency on the counter, enough to keep the bakery running for months. "Your creations are unexpected," he said to Tai. "I will take a selection for my journey." As Tai carefully packed a variety of breads and pastries, he made a decision that would change everything. Along with the food, he included a simple cloth napkin with the bakery's logo embroidered in one corner. "For the journey," Tai said, handing the package to the king. "Even kings get crumbs on their scales." The Dragon King's eyes narrowed slightly, but he accepted the package with a regal nod before ducking out of the shop, his entourage following closely behind. Only Tai knew what else the napkin contained: a message written in special ink, visible only under certain light, a message that would reach the king when he was alone, away from advisors and guards, a message from one old warrior to another, about peace, memory, and the shared dust from which all life had come. The moment the Dragon King left the bakery, Starlight Street erupted in whispers. Aliens of all kinds pressed their faces against Tai's windows, trying to understand what had happened. How had a simple human baker survived a meeting with the feared ruler? Day rushed in as soon as the royal guards were out of sight. "You still breathe," he exclaimed, all four eyes wide with shock. "What magic did you work on the king?" Tai smiled as he cleaned his counter. "No magic, just bread. Just bread," Day repeated, shaking his blue head in wonder. "You humans are strange creatures." For the rest of the day, Tai's bakery was busier than ever. Everyone wanted to see the shop that had caught the Dragon King's attention. Many bought bread for the first time, curious about what had interested such a powerful being. As Tai worked, his mind kept returning to the napkin he had given the king. Had he gone too far? The message he had written was dangerous: a direct, unofficial communication with the ruler. Such things were forbidden. If discovered, it could mean his death, but some risks were worth taking. Humans had been fighting for their place in the galaxy for too long. With the Dragon King now controlling this sector, their future looked grim. Sometimes, a small voice at the right moment could change everything. Night fell on the station, lights dimming to mimic Earth's cycle. Tai closed his shop and climbed the narrow stairs to his small apartment above the bakery. From his window, he could see the massive shapes of the Dragon King's ships, their lights glowing against the blackness of space. "Let him read it," Tai whispered to the stars. "Let him understand." Aboard the royal flagship, King Haiyan sat alone in his private chamber. The room was large and grand, with walls that showed real-time views of space around the ship. The neural crown was off his head for the first time that day, sitting on a special stand nearby. The Dragon King's scaled fingers opened the package from the human baker. The breads and pastries gave off a warm, rich smell that filled the room. It had been many years since he had eaten food made by hand rather than by machines. As he reached for one of the twisted honey pastries, he noticed the napkin. It was simple cloth, nothing special to the eye, but something made him pause. Haiyan had lived for 600 years, and his instincts were sharp. He pressed a button on his desk. "Bring the scanner," he ordered. Minutes later, a guard arrived with a small device. The Dragon King passed the napkin under it, and suddenly, hidden words appeared. glowing softly in the perfect script of the Draconis language. Before you conquered stars, you were children of dust, as were we. Remember your beginning before you decide our end. Below these words was a simple drawing of two small figures sitting side by side, a human child and a Draconis hatchling. King Hyan stared at the message for a long time. His first reaction was anger. How dare this human speak to him so directly? It was against all protocol, all rules of his court. The baker should be arrested immediately, made an example of. But something held him back. In 600 years of life, few beings had ever spoken to him with such simple truth. There was no begging in the message, no flattery, just a reminder of something long forgotten. The Dragon King pressed another button. "Bring Jin to me," he commanded. The six-armed translator arrived quickly, his eyes shifting to a nervous purple when he saw the napkin on the king's desk. "Tell me about human bakers," Hyan said, his voice calm. Jin blinked in confusion. "Bakers, Your Majesty, yes, their place in human society, their meaning." The translator's eyes turned to thoughtful blue as he accessed his knowledge. In human history, bakers were important community members. Bread was central to many human cultures. It represented life, sharing, and peace. To break bread with someone meant to put aside differences and share a meal as equals. "Interesting," the king said. "And this baker on the station, what do we know of him?" Jin connected to the ship's database through his neural implant. "His name is Taisung, age 73 in human years. He was once a soldier in the Earth Defense Force during the Human-Draconis War. Records show he fought at the Battle of Proxima Centauri." The Dragon King's eyes narrowed. "He fought against our forces." "Yes, Your Majesty. He was a combat engineer. After the war ended, he left military service and opened his first bakery. Since then, he has established shops on 17 different worlds and stations. A warrior who became a baker." Hyan mused. Why would he choose such a path? Jin hesitated. There is a note in his file. His bakeries are known as neutral ground, places where different species, even those in conflict, can meet peacefully. Some diplomats call them bread sanctuaries. The Dragon King picked up the napkin again, studying the simple drawing. "He makes peace through bread," he said softly. "It appears so, Your Majesty." Hyan was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision that surprised even himself. "We will remain at this station for 3 more days. Jin's eyes flashed yellow with surprise. "The schedule can be changed," the king interrupted. "I am not finished here. As you wish. Your Majesty, shall I inform the fleet?" "Yes, and Jin, find out everything you can about this baker. His war record, his life after, everything." When the translator had gone, the Dragon King returned to the window, looking out at the stars his ancestors had fought to claim. In his long life, he had conquered worlds, crushed rebellions, and expanded his empire across the stars. But something about the old human's simple message had touched a place long buried. He remembered his own hatching days, before the crown, before the throne. He remembered looking up at the stars with wonder, not with thoughts of ownership. "Children of dust," he repeated to himself, the human's words echoing in his mind. For the first time in many years, King Hyan ate his meal slowly, tasting each bite of the baker's creations. The bread was simple, but somehow perfect, crisp on the outside, soft within. The pastries were sweet, but not too sweet, with flavors that reminded him of things he had tasted long ago. As he ate, he thought about the human baker who had dared to speak to him as a person, not just a king, who had reminded him of something important. The Dragon King made another decision then, one that would surprise his advisors and change the course of many lives. "I will speak with him again," he said to the empty room. "This baker has more to tell me." Outside, the stars continued their slow dance around the gas giant, unaware that the fate of worlds might turn on a simple napkin and the courage of an old human baker. The next morning, Tai woke early as usual. His old bones ached a little more than normal, perhaps from the stress of meeting the Dragon King. He moved slowly down the stairs to his bakery, turning on lights and warming the oven. As he mixed the first batch of dough, he wondered if the king had found his hidden message. Had it made any difference, or had it simply been thrown away? his small act of courage wasted. No use worrying now, he told himself, kneading the dough with strong, steady movements. What's done is done. The station news reported that the Dragon King's fleet would stay for 3 more days, much longer than planned. Officials scrambled to prepare special events and shows of respect. Everyone wondered why the powerful ruler had changed his schedule. Tai had just opened his shop when a group of royal guards appeared outside. Their scaled faces showed no emotion as they positioned themselves on either side of his door. Customers stopped and stared, then hurried away, not wanting to get involved in whatever was happening. Day rushed over from his shop, worry clear on his blue face. Tai, what have you done? The king's guards. It's all right, friend, Tai said calmly, though his heart beat faster. Perhaps they just want more bread. This is no joke. Day's eyes blinked rapidly. No one crosses the Dragon King and lives. Before Tai could answer, the bakery door slid open. Instead of the king, the 6-armed translator named Jin entered. His eyes were a calm blue as he bowed slightly to Tai. Baker Tai Sung, he said formally. His Majesty requests your presence. Tai wiped his hands on his apron. Now, this afternoon, you are to bring a selection of your breads to the royal ship. Jin's eyes shifted to a more serious green. His Majesty found your message interesting. Tai felt a mix of relief and new worry. The king had read his words and wanted to talk, not simply arrest him. That was something. I'll be ready, he said. Will I need to bring anything special? Just your bread, Jin replied, and perhaps your courage. The translator's eyes turned a softer color. The king rarely invites humans to his private chambers. This is unusual. After Jin left, Tai closed his shop for the day. He needed time to prepare his best breads and to think about what he would say to the Dragon King. This might be his only chance to speak for his people. Day watched anxiously as Tai worked. You could run, the blue merchant suggested. I have friends with a fast ship. You could be 3 systems away before they notice. Tai shook his head. I'm too old to run. Besides, this might be important not just for me, but for all humans in Draconis space. You always were too brave for your own good, Day sighed. At least let me help you prepare. Together, they selected the finest ingredients from Tai's supplies. The old baker worked with special care, creating not just his usual breads, but special recipes from his childhood on Earth, things he hadn't made in years. If these are to be my last creations, he told Day, they should be my best. That afternoon, a royal shuttle arrived to take Tai to the flagship. The small craft moved smoothly through space, its windows showing the massive Draconis ships that surrounded the station. The flagship itself was enormous, shaped like a great winged creature, with lights that pulsed along its sides like heartbeats. Jin met Tai at the docking bay. Follow me, he said, leading the baker through wide corridors, filled with Draconis crew members. Many stopped to stare at the human in his simple clothes, carrying baskets of bread. They don't see many humans here, Jin explained quietly. I imagine not, Tai replied. Especially not old bakers. They traveled up through the ship, finally reaching a large door guarded by elite soldiers. Jin spoke a few words in the clicking Draconis language, and the doors slid open. The Dragon King's private chamber was both beautiful and strange. One entire wall showed the stars outside, while another displayed maps of his vast empire. Plants from a dozen worlds grew in special containers, and art from conquered planets hung on the walls. King Haiyan himself stood by the window, his scaled back to the door. Without his armor, he looked less frightening, but no less powerful. His tail moved slowly back and forth as he turned to face his visitor. Baker Tai Sung, he said, his deep voice filling the room. You have taken a great risk. Tai set his baskets on a table and bowed slightly. Yes, Your Majesty. Do you know the penalty for unauthorized communication with the sovereign? I can guess, Tai said calmly. The Dragon King's vertical pupils narrowed. Yet you did it anyway. Why? Tai met the king's gaze. Because sometimes words need to be said, even if they bring danger. Your message spoke of dust, of beginnings. The king moved closer, his clawed feet making soft sounds on the floor. Explain. Tai took a deep breath. Before we were humans and Draconis, before we had ships and crowns and wars, We were just life finding its way in the universe, made of the same star stuff, the same cosmic dust, different paths, but same beginnings. Poetic, the king said, but hardly useful in matters of empire. Perhaps not, Tai agreed, but useful in matters of wisdom. Great kings don't just conquer, they understand. For a moment, anger flashed in the Dragon King's eyes. Then, surprisingly, he laughed, a rumbling sound like distant thunder. You are either very brave or very foolish, Baker. Perhaps both. He gestured to the baskets. What have you brought me today? Tai opened his baskets, revealing the breads and pastries he had made. These are special. Foods from Earth's many cultures. Each tells a story of my people. He lifted a round, dark bread. This is pumpernickel from the northern lands. Farmers ate it during cold winters. Next came a flat bread. This is naan from the eastern regions, cooked in hot clay ovens. He continued, showing breads from every corner of Earth, tortillas, baguettes, pita, injera, each with its own story. The Dragon King listened with surprising interest. When Tai finished, he picked up a piece of the dark bread and tasted it. Your species has many ways to make simple things, he observed. Yes, Tai said. That's our strength. We adapt, we create, we find new paths. We're not the strongest or the most advanced, but we're good at starting over, at making something from almost nothing. The king was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You fought against my people at Proxima Centauri. Tai nodded. I did. Why did you become a baker after being a warrior? Because I was tired of destroying. Tai said simply, I wanted to create, to bring people together instead of pushing them apart. The Dragon King studied him with ancient eyes. An unusual choice. Not really, Tai replied. Many old soldiers find peaceful work when wars end. It helps heal the spirit. Something changed in the king's expression, a softening, perhaps, or a new understanding. Tomorrow, he said, the Galactic Council meets to decide the status of humans in our territory. I will cast the deciding vote. Tai's heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. I see. Your people fear my decision. Yes, Your Majesty, we do. The Dragon King moved back to the window, looking out at the stars. Return to your shop, Baker. I have thinking to do. As Jin led Tai back through the ship, the old baker wondered if his words had made any difference. Had he helped his people? Or had he simply provided an interesting conversation for a bored king? Only tomorrow would tell. Tai barely slept that night. He lay in his small bed above the bakery, listening to the hum of the station and thinking about his meeting with the Dragon King. Had his words made any difference? Tomorrow the Galactic Council would meet, and the fate of humans throughout Draconis space would be decided. When the station's lights brightened to signal morning, Tai rose and went downstairs. Even if the world might change today, bread still needed to be made. The familiar work of mixing dough and heating the oven calmed his worried mind. Day appeared at the bakery door just as Tai pulled the first loaves from the oven. You're still here, the blue merchant said with relief, when you went to the royal ship. I feared I would never see you again. Tai smiled. The king just wanted to talk and eat more bread. Talk? About what? About humans. About history. About beginnings. Tai placed the hot loaves on cooling racks. Today he votes on our status in the council. Days for eyes blinked. Rapidly, the whole station is talking about it. Many aliens are leaving, afraid of what might happen if humans lose their rights. And what do you think will happen? Tai asked. Day's skin darkened with worry. The Dragon King has never shown mercy to species that once fought against him. The Altarians lost their home worlds. The Mebosi became servants. Why would humans be different? Tai had no answer. He simply continued his work, letting the familiar motions keep his fears at bay. Midway through the morning, the bakery door slid open. Jin, the royal translator, stepped inside. His eyes were a calm blue, giving away nothing. Baker Tai Sung, he said formally. His Majesty requests your presence at the Galactic Council meeting. Tai's hands froze in the dough he was kneading. The council, but I'm not a diplomat or official. Nevertheless, the king asks for you specifically. Jin's eyes shifted to a warmer color. This is most unusual. No human has been invited to the council chamber in many years. Day, who had been listening from the corner, stepped forward. What does it mean? I cannot say, Jin replied, but we must leave soon. The meeting begins in 2 hours. Tai looked down at his flour-covered hands and simple clothes. I should clean up. No, Jin interrupted. His Majesty was specific. He wishes you to come as you are, a baker, not a diplomat. After quickly washing his hands and putting on a clean apron, Tai followed Jin to the waiting shuttle. Day watched from the doorway, all for eyes wide with worry. Return safely, friend. The blue merchant called. Your bread will be missed if you don't. The Galactic Council met in a massive space station that orbited no planet. It hung in the emptiness between stars, a neutral ground where the powerful species of the galaxy made their laws and settled there. Disputes died as the royal shuttle approached. Tai saw hundreds of other ships docked around the station. Flags and symbols from 100 worlds decorated their hulls. All council members are present today, Jin explained. The status of humans is an important issue. Many species are watching to see how the Dragon King will vote. The shuttle docked smoothly, and Tai followed Jin through gleaming corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved about, many stopping to stare at the human in a baker's apron walking alongside a royal translator. They reached a large waiting room outside the main council chamber. Here, Jin turned to Tai with serious eyes. Wait, here until called. Do not speak unless the king addresses you directly. And Jin hesitated, his eyes turning a concerned green. Be prepared for anything. The king's mind is his own, and even those closest to him cannot always predict his actions. With that warning, Jin left Tai alone in the waiting room. Through a large window, Tai could see the council chamber itself, a vast circular room with tiered seating. In the center stood a raised platform where speakers would address the gathered representatives. Already the seats were filling with beings from across the galaxy. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Tai could hardly understand what he was seeing. Lights, colors, shapes that seemed to shift and change. The diversity was overwhelming. On a high throne at one side of the chamber sat the Dragon King. Even from a distance, his presence dominated the room. His scales gleamed under the lights, and his neural crown pulsed with power. A soft chime sounded, and the room fell silent. An ancient being with skin like flowing water rose to speak. The council is gathered to decide the status of humans within Draconis space, the being announced, its voice somehow reaching every corner of the room without seeming loud. As is tradition, the ruler of the territory will cast the deciding vote. King Hyan, are you prepared to share your decision? The Dragon King rose from his throne. The entire chamber watched in silence as he moved to the central platform. Before I give my vote, he said, his deep voice filling the room, I wish to share something I have learned. He raised a clawed hand, and the large doors to the waiting room slid open. Enter, Baker. The king called. Tai's heart pounded as he walked into the council chamber. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to watch him, a simple old human in a flour-dusted apron. He felt small and out of place among the powerful beings who ruled the galaxy. This human, the Dragon King announced, fought against our forces in the Great War. By our laws, he should be our enemy, yet now he makes bread. He creates rather than destroys. Tai stood still, hardly daring to breathe as the king continued. Yesterday, he reminded me of something important. Before we conquered stars, before we built empires, we were all children of the same cosmic dust, different paths, but same beginnings. A murmur ran through the council. Some representatives nodded, while others shifted uncomfortably. I have ruled 7 systems for 300 years, the Dragon King said. In that time, I have conquered 12 more. I have seen species rise and fall. I have judged many as unworthy of freedom. He turned to look directly at Tai. But I have been reminded that judgment must be balanced with understanding, that strength comes in many forms, that those who can turn from war to creation deserve a second look. The king raised his voice, addressing the entire council now. We have judged humans by their warriors, but not by their bakers, by their weapons, but not by their wheat fields, by their capacity for violence, but not by their capacity for peace. From behind his throne, an attendant brought forward a covered tray. The Dragon King removed the cover, revealing several of Tai's breads from the day before. In the oldest, Traditions of my people, we shared food with those we respected, the king said. Today, I invite the council to do the same. Attendants moved through the chamber, distributing small pieces of Thai's bread to each representative. Confusion showed on many alien faces, but one by one, they tasted the offering. My vote, the Dragon King announced as the bread was shared, is for full acceptance of humans into the Confederation, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The chamber erupted in sound, some voices raised in protest, others in approval. The ancient water being had to call for order several times before quiet returned. The vote is cast and will be recorded, the being announced. Humans will retain full rights within Draconis space and the wider Confederation. Tai stood in shock, hardly believing what he had heard. The Dragon King, feared conqueror of worlds, had voted to protect humans rather than subjugate them. As the council moved on to other matters, the king descended from the platform and approached Tai. Your bread has opened a door, Baker, he said quietly, but it is only a beginning. There's much work to be done if our peoples are to truly understand each other. Thank you, Your Majesty, Tai said, his voice thick with emotion. For listening, for understanding. The Dragon King's eyes held Tai's for a long moment. Return to your bakery, continue your work. It matters more than you know. As Jin led him back to the shuttle, Tai felt lighter than he had in years. One small act, a message on a napkin, had somehow changed the course of history. Sometimes the smallest things made the biggest difference. 5 years had passed since the day Tai's bread changed the fate of humans in Draconis space. The old baker stood in his shop on Starlight Street, watching as customers of many species lined up for his fresh loaves. His bakery had grown. Now, Earth's hearth took up 3 storefronts, with helpers from 6 different worlds learning the art of bread making under Tai's watchful eye. The simple wooden sign remained, though everything else had changed. Master Tai, called a young voice. The special order is ready. Tai turned to CG, his newest student. The young Draconis was only 20 years old, a child by his species standards. But he had a gift for baking. His scaled hands were gentle with the dough, and he never rushed the important steps. Let me see, Tai said, moving to inspect the tray of ceremonial bread. Today was the 5th anniversary of the council decision, and stations throughout Draconis space were celebrating Human Draconis Friendship Day. Perfect. Tai nodded, patting G's shoulder. You have learned well. The young Draconis's eyes shone with pride. 5 years ago, the idea of a Draconis learning from a human would have been unthinkable. Now, it was becoming common. Day entered through the back door, his blue skin now showing signs of age. The merchant had become Tai's business partner, handling the money and supplies while Tai focused on teaching and baking. The square's filling up, Day reported. Officials from both governments are arriving. And he lowered his voice. There are rumors the Dragon King himself might attend this year's celebration. Tai shook his head. He's too busy for such small events. Besides, kings don't visit bakeries twice in a lifetime. This is no longer just a bakery, Day pointed out, gesturing around them. This is where it all began. The place is famous now. It was true. After the council decision, Earth's hearth had become something of a symbol. Diplomats from across the galaxy made a point to visit when in the sector. Some called it the bakery that saved humanity. Though Tai always corrected them. Bread doesn't save anyone, he would say. People save each other. Bread just helps them remember how. The shop had also become the first of many peace tables, places where different species could meet on neutral ground to talk, share food, and solve problems. There were now hundreds of such places throughout the galaxy, many of them bakeries. Started by Tai's students. The ceremony starts in 1 hour, Day reminded him. You should get ready. Tai nodded and went upstairs to his apartment to change. His old bones moved more slowly now, and his hair had thinned to wisps of white. At 78, he knew he didn't have many years left, but he had lived to see something wonderful grow from a simple act of courage. When he came back, downstairs, in his best clothes, he found Jin waiting for him. The 6-armed translator had become a friend over the years, visiting whenever royal business brought him to the station. Baker Tai. Jin greeted him, eyes a warm yellow of friendship. It is Good to see you well. And you, Jin, are you here for the ceremony? Yes, but also with news. Jin's eyes shifted to a more formal blue. His Majesty will indeed attend today's celebration. Ty's heart jumped. Truly? After all this time? He has been watching your work with great interest, Jin said. The peace, tables, the training program for young bakers, the cultural exchange, all of it. He believes you have created something important. Before Tai could respond, a commotion outside caught their attention. Through the window, they could see royal guards clearing a path. Through the crowded square. He's early, Jin said, eyes widening. In surprise, the bakery door slid open, and there stood the Dragon King. He seemed unchanged by the 5 years. His scales still gleamed with health. His eyes still held ancient wisdom. But something was different. He wore simpler clothes, and his neural crown was smaller, less imposing. Everyone in the bakery bowed deeply. Tai moved forward. His old legs steadied despite his surprise. Welcome back, Your Majesty, he said. We are honored. The Dragon King looked around the expanded shop, taking in the students of different species working side by side, the new ovens, the displays of bread from a dozen worlds. You have built something remarkable, Baker, he said. His deep voice was the same as Tai remembered. Thank you, Your Majesty, but I had help. Tai gestured to his students, and today, many hands make light work, as we say on earth. The king nodded. Before the ceremony, I would speak with you privately. Tai led the way to a small office at the back of the bakery. Once the door closed, the Dragon King seemed to relax slightly. 5 years, he said. Much has changed. Yes, Your Majesty. The peace tables have spread to 300 worlds. Your students open new bakeries every month. Species that once fought now break bread together. The king's vertical pupils fixed on Tai, all from a message on a napkin. Tai smiled. Sometimes small things can start big changes. Indeed. The Dragon King reached into a pocket and pulled out a familiar cloth, the napkin Tai had given him 5 years ago. The message was still visible, though faded with time. I keep this with me, the king said. A reminder. Tai was touched. I never expected it to mean so much, nor did I. The Dragon King set the napkin carefully on the desk. I have come today, not just for the ceremony, but to ask something of you. Anything, Your Majesty. My son, the prince, will soon begin his training to one day take my place. I want him to understand what I did not learn until late in life, that ruling is not just about power, but about wisdom. Tai waited, sensing there was more. I want him to learn from you. The king continued, not just how to make bread, but how to see beyond differences, how to remember that we all come from the same dust. Tai's eyes widened. You want the prince to become my student for 1 year. He would work here, learn your craft, meet people of all kinds. No special treatment, no royal guards watching over him, just a young draconis learning an important skill. It was an extraordinary request. The heir to the 7 systems, working as a baker's apprentice. It would be my honor, Tai said, bowing his head. But I am old, Your Majesty. I may not have many years left to teach. Then he will learn what he can in the time you have. The king replied, some lessons cannot wait. They rejoined the others, moving together toward the square where the ceremony would take place. As they walked, the Dragon King spoke again. There is one more thing, Baker. The Galactic University wishes to preserve your methods. They have asked to record your techniques, your recipes, your stories, to make sure they are not lost. Tai laughed softly. All this fuss over an old man who makes bread. Not just bread. The king corrected him. Understanding, peace, remembrance of what matters. The square was packed with beings from across the galaxy. A cheer went up as the Dragon King appeared with Tai at his side, on a stage decorated with symbols from both human and draconis cultures. Officials waited to begin the ceremony. As they climbed the steps to the stage, Tai looked out at the crowd. He saw his students, his friends, and hundreds of strangers all gathered because of what had grown from one small act of courage. 5 years ago, the Dragon King began, his voice carrying across the square. A simple message reminded me of an ancient truth. Today, we celebrate not just peace between our peoples, but a new way of seeing each other. Tai stood tall beside the mighty ruler, his old heart full. He had lived a long life, had known war and peace, had seen the worst and best of many species. But this moment, perhaps, was his greatest achievement, not because he had changed a king's mind or saved his people, but because he had helped create something new, a place where old enemies could become new friends, where different beings could remember their shared beginnings, all because of bread and courage, and a simple message: before you conquered stars, you were children of dust, as were we. Remember your beginning before you decide our end. Sometimes, the smallest things made the biggest difference.